Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We are excited to announce kind of the first of our T-Series webinars that we're going to be doing. We have been going and working towards a series of webinars for iOS users, and we really saw a need to make sure that we're also assisting those lab workers with the T-Series. So with us today, we have Jeff. Jeff is a lab technician. If you've been in the lab industry or in the dental industry in the
Well,
U.S. at all, you probably know Jeff at some point in time. So Jeff, thanks again. I'll give you just a second here. Um, Thanks for
my
joining us
pleasure.
today, and we're really excited to hear what you have to say. We've been planning these for a long time, and I know you've put a lot of effort into it. So thanks again.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Okay,
Appreciate
so
it.
before I turn the time off to you entirely, I know people are joining to hear from you. I would just like to remind everybody that these webinars, as always, are being recorded. So you will receive the recording about 48 hours after we go live. And we will also take questions. So if you have a question, you can click on the control panel, the little hand next to your name. It allows you to kind of raise your hand and type your questions. I will watch for those questions to come through, and then I will read them out loud to Jeff. So if there is any questions, please ask them. We'll make sure we get to as many questions as we can before we wrap up today. And I also kind of, as always, want to remind everyone that we try to keep these webinars kind of short, and Jeff's really done his best to condense it, the topics, and we're going to do kind of more short topic webinars, so they're easy to go back in, they're easy to watch, they don't take a lot of time, they're easy to kind of review, and especially if you're training somebody in your laboratory how to use the T-Series, it's easy to pass. It will be in the future to pass these webinars off to your employees, and they can watch them and they can learn how to use the T-Series. So that being said, Jeff, and towards the end of the webinar, I'm going to actually announce our next T-Series webinar coming up.
Right.
It'll be in about a month, and we look forward to seeing you on that one as well. So that being said, I'm going to turn the time over to Jeff. You guys should be seeing his screen at this point in time.
Yeah, let's switch to my screen.
Yep, your screen's on, and then we're just going to turn our cameras off so you guys can see more full screen of what's going on. And Jeff will jump right into it and he'll get started. So thanks again, Jeff. We appreciate it.
Welcome. Thank you. Thanks for attending, everyone. There we go. So I'm sure you all know how to get into your Medit link and open up your Medit link for labs, scan for labs.
So Jeff, I'm gonna jump in every now and again here, and as anyone knows, with the webinars, and you and I have done a lot of webinars ourselves, actually. If you're working from a lab, Medit link, you're going to see that the icons are a bit different on the left-hand side. Instead of case box, you have inbox and so forth. So just in case we have any iOS users attending right now, they'll kind of understand the differences here. So again, sorry for interrupting.
No, yeah, Emily's going to interject when she sees that I, neglected to mention something, or she feels like there's an important point that we can make together. So basically, you're going to click and set up your account. You can name it anything you want. Today's date, 16. Just call it 16. And register. Okay, and this is a screen you may be familiar with as well. Some people say it looks a little bit like Exocad. This is where you're going to be setting up your case. Okay, so we can go into the diagram here. When you're setting up a crown and bridge, you want to use the teeth. And if you're using dentures, partial dentures and clear aligners, you're going to be selecting arches. So we're using teeth here, and you select your tooth number that you work on, whether the die. And if you have more than one, you can hit the control key and do them both at the same time. That way you don't have to set them up here and make your choices twice. So I'll do crown, anatomic, zirconia, A3. And then I want to use my antagonists here so I can get those scanned for contacts. And I also want to have the antagonist so I can use articulation or bite registration.
Hey, Jeff.
Okay. Yes.
I just realized as you got into this and you were selecting the crowns, those people who joined obviously joined for a reason. And we did kind of forget to mention what we're going to be covering today. We are going to be going over calibration, which Jeff is going to talk about, and then scanning full arches. Correct, Jeff?
Right. Yep. And
Okay.
I'll see my calibration icon when I get to the next screen. It'll show that it's not calibrated.
Perfect. So we just jumped
So,
right into it. But for those of you who are new and weren't sure what you're going to watch, we're just giving you a heads up.
right. And then you can also, if you make a mistake here, you want to change something, you can use your garbage can over here on the right and delete it and start over. All right. And you can go back and make changes to your selections. Okay. So hit save down here in the bottom right. And I can go up to the top right, hit scan. And now you can see in the bottom left here, my scanner icon is not green, which means go, but it is orange. So if I click on that, what you're going to do is, obviously your package comes with a scanner calibration plate, which has a QR code on the back, as well as a serial number. So you're going to take that white cover off, and I'll place that on my scanner. And you want to be really careful when you're taking the cover off and when you're handling it, not to touch the top surface, which is black with a lot of white dots on it, obviously. And it only fits on one way because you have a notch on the bottom side, as you probably well know. So once that's in place, prepare the calibration panel. It always has little instructions here for you. You can hit the next icon. And then you do auto calibration. Okay.
So you actually place the calibration tool on the plate of the T-Series, correct?
There's not a tool, it's just the plate itself. So this entire thing in the picture here actually goes on the swing arm.
Perfect.
With a magnetic fit, okay? And it'll go through, the procedure. You'll see, the progress bar. There it comes now. And it's fairly quick, and we can show you how you can set that up to do on a schedule that fits your laboratory. It is defaulted to 30 days. A lot of labs will set it to 7 days because they may want to do it every Friday or maybe every Monday when they come in. But there's some options in the drop downs we can show you in the settings, and you can change that.
Now, Jeff, in order to calibrate, does the scanner need to be turned on, or does it need to warm up or anything like that? Or do you just flip it on and you're able to calibrate right away?
Yeah, when you flip it on, you'll have the ready light, and you can just go ahead right away with that.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So each calibration panel is specific to each scanner. So if you have more than one in the lab, don't mix them up. And then when you're finished, obviously you want to put the white cover back on top to keep the surface clean from, dust and debris and from people handling it. It's about 50% done now, so it's pretty quick.
Okay. And you mentioned you can show us where to set basically the calibration time. So it reminds you so often, right? And so you can change that reminder for kind of a more extended period of time, or you can calibrate more often.
Absolutely, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's just a preference. All of our settings are defaults that Medit has determined would be the optimal operation settings. But of course, you're free to change that to your desired setting to fit your laboratory needs.
Perfect.
And sometimes it could be different for different doctors. So settings can always be different.
Okay. That's one thing I really like about Medit is it actually it gives you options basically, so you can choose what's best. So I know with the iOS scanner, the default is 14 days. After working with a lot of doctors, they like to just calibrate. Maybe Monday morning or Friday afternoon, get the calibration complete and ready to go for the week, so they know that it's calibrated correctly. And it's nice having the options. I think is the good part.
Right. And, even though the picture shown on the screen is, stagnant, it's not moving, it's stationary. The scanner obviously is moving. I don't know if you can hear it, making its whining noises that are just normal. The gears are moving, but it is swinging back and forth, tilting the plate at different angles. The blue light is flashing and getting the readings off of the plate itself.
Got it. And one thing. Oh, go ahead.
I say it really is an advanced, improved procedure. So I used to work with the scanners that in Medit in 2008, and it wasn't a lot more involved procedure where you had to click on things constantly to get them eliminated. But they've got it down to just basically place it and play, and that's all you have to do.
Very nice. You
So
know,
it's
and
getting
while this
close now.
is calibrating, I just want to take a second and mention that, you know, we're really focusing on reaching out to our end users and having a connection with them. So, you know, as an end user, if there's certain things or topics you would like to learn more about, please respond to the email where you got your invite and let us know where you have questions about, you know, whether it's the T-Series or obviously, you know, the iOS system. We're happy to plan webinars around your needs. So there's my little plug that we want to hear from the end users. We want to help, we want to be connected and so forth. So yeah, respond to
Okay.
that email and give us your ideas.
Right. Yeah, and it's at 100% now, so it'll just calculate and then flashes up hopefully an OK. There we go. So we passed.
You
You can see in the
passed.
middle there. Yep.
Good job,
So
Jeff.
we'll just say complete. And now if you notice down here, it is turned to a green color. And that's a good sign. Okay. So according to the way that we just set up that case with the two crowns, what you choose there as far as restoration types will determine the icons that will be in the scanning window and their order. So different setups will be determined for different types of restorations.
Got it.
All right. And you'll see what I mean as we go forward. So here you have the flexible die option. That can be solely used if you have like 10 copings that you want to make single dies and you don't have any concern for the adjacents or the occlusion. Okay. And then model is another way you can do it, where you can scan the dies actually in the models themselves without having to remove them. And obviously another webinar we'll have in the future will be about impressions. So I set this up as a multi-die flexible and in the base. The other way, if you set it up like this, notice they both change because they're related. It would match into the byte reg or the occlusion model, but I'm going to be doing it on separate models. And I unfortunately don't have a gum tissue for this particular model. So we'll confirm that after we talk about these side icons. If you have your texture on, basically that's a color option or a kind of a model beige color, and it's also in this icon here. All right, and then these are the basic mouse moves, panning, rotating, zooming in and out, and so forth. So the same ones you do with your mouse wheel or left clicks and right clicks and drags. They're most commonly used on the mouse, of course. And then you have your articulator type. You notice this is the upper model in blue, the lower model in blue, or say highlighted, and then both models highlighted. And you can select your articulator type here. If you are using the 3 complex articulators, we do have special plates that come in your kit that you can mount those on to prevent movements in the scanner. Just basically a secure mounting. Okay, so I'll confirm this. Now you see our work order here at the top. So these icons are in a certain order. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have to follow that. Say I had this in the case pan, the models came to me articulated. I could just skip right to this icon here, do the occlusion scan, and then I can go back to the first step. So
okay, you just answered my question. I was wondering, you know, if you have to go follow kind of consecutively across the top of the screen, or if you have a little more flexibility there. So
yeah, I mean the software is very intelligent, where, like I said, it determines the steps that you need. It's not going to give you unnecessary icons that you don't need, you know, to avoid confusion, and that helps because you're going to be clicking next, so it's going to be moving through the workflow. Okay, so I removed the calibration plate, and then I'm going to take the scanning plate with the upper model and the lower die. And the reason I'm doing this is because everything in labs is based around speed. You know, how much time does it take me to do this or that? So we do have the workflow where you can individually scan the dies on the multi-die plate. then you can scan the models, and then you can merge it and so forth. A lot of extra scans. This way, I can actually scan the upper model with the opposing lower die, and then I'll reverse that and scan the lower model with the opposing upper die, and it just saves a lot of time, makes things really quick. And of course, you know, if I weren't speaking today, I could probably move through this whole procedure in, you know, 3 minutes or something like that. But this is, you know, going to be a webinar for training, so obviously it's going to take some time. And if you have some questions, we'll be answering those in the end as well. So I'm going ahead, I've got that at the right position with the multi-die icon. I've got my upper model in with my lower die. And here we have a reflection option to either slide, left click and slide this down. You can see how dark it can get, or you can bring it up and make it brighter. And you can see how reflective that can get. So where this really comes in handy is, are you scanning a printed model that has some texture, or are you scanning a smooth stone model? Might be white or gray, all kinds of differences. So this is really critical to be able to have this option here. It's very nice to be able to slide that. You know, 12 to 14 is pretty much a common thing for most cases, common setting. This defaults to 20, but also in the settings, we can change that. And that's by clicking on these three lines up here. It'll bring us to the settings. We'll talk about that later. So you also have the option of clicking on the minus sign or the plus sign or dragging, okay? So once I get that where I'm comfortable, the only icon I have available here in the lower is the scan. So like all software, if you hang your cursor over the icon, it explains the name of it and basically the short process. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Now here we have a few options as well. I basically want you to, you know, notice that there always are instructions here you can read, but just left clicking on this blue arrow, I can slide it up and down. So anything below the line will not be scanned, and then anything above it will be. So you want to just be critical that you're not getting like this, say maybe okay for this margin, but too close to this margin. All right, and when you have laboratories mounting models by different people, sometimes they're slanted or tilted, and that's where these four options come in handy, because you might want to look at the different position. You can see a very slight tilt to this one, so I know I'm okay. But some models are drastically tilted where it might be interfering with the margin here and then give you a lot of room here in the distal. So you'd have to adjust for that. And I'll show you how to do that. Here's my view from the rear and my view from the right. Okay. Now, commonly you won't need that because you're going to try to mount it as flat as possible. And you definitely don't need that if you're just doing dies, like on a multi-die plate, because it's a circumferential view, 360. You don't have to worry about that. So if I did want more base here, especially if I have models that are articulated in the last step that you'll see, I may have too much base or not enough base. And I kind of want to get the midline just right in the middle. So I have these options here to move this up or move it down. Okay.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah.
While we go, and as the questions come through, I think maybe I'll just ask you the questions instead of saving them for the end. That way we can kind of be on topic.
Absolutely.
So this is in regards to, I believe, so making the adjustments, the brightness of the color and so forth, like you were showing us.
Mm-hmm.
The question is if I make it bright, is it well scanned? So basically, so why do you need to adjust the brightness? Is it something that will affect the scan later, or is it just so you can view it better with the cameras? Does it actually affect the final scan?
It affects the ability to pick up the scan data better. So
Got it.
If you have something that's too reflective, then you won't capture it to the quality that you need. So
okay.
If it's a lab usually has the same type of die stone or only uses printed models, you should just be able to set that at the default setting and not ever have to mess with it. You know, unless you got a new case in from somebody else who are helping out or something, you might change it. But that's what it's all about, the reflection and how the camera sees the model. Just think about yourself. If I come to you and shine a flashlight in your eyes, you know, it just doesn't work for be able to pick up what you're looking at. You can see it's a flashlight, but you really can't see, you know, the metal around the light. You're just seeing a bright light.
So maybe some materials are more reflective, which is going to affect the detailing on the model later.
Absolutely, yep.
Okay, got it.
And you know, some dyes are coated with a dye coating, which is clear, like a sealer. And sometimes, like you can see on a dye, might be a little bit glossy. So you may have to turn it down for that instance.
Perfect.
But you know, it's something you get used to, and it's quite a range. Like I'm saying, if you set it at 12, it's not going to be like drastically different at 14. It'll be different at 20, but you know, the numbers are pretty close together for that, and you'll get a good feel for it once you do a scan or two.
Makes sense. Thank you, and thanks for your questions.
So I'll confirm this here. Okay, we'll pick this up. Also on your left side, you know, it always has some instruction over here, kind of like a wizard. They're not going to answer everything for you or give you every step, but it just kind of is like a reminder, you know, check this, do that, see what you've got.
Now, Jeff, while this is scanning, is it important to leave space between the die and the model? Sufficient space?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about that earlier, especially if you have a multi-die plate. We've got, you know, 6 or 10 dies on there. You want to have space between them so it can capture the mesial distals, okay? And one thing I want to mention about putting the models on the plate, you want to have the anterior pointing towards the camera, okay? So what I did is I put a black magic marker dot on my plate, and I just mount the models with the, you know, the centrals facing that mark. And the same could be said for the dies. You want to get your buckle margins towards the camera, if at all possible. If you can't, it will still pick it up, but it's just nice for alignment and registration later. So in this stage, you know, a fast moving lab that doesn't want to waste time would just move forward from here. For demo purposes, I'm going to show you this, and just because I like to have neat scans anyway, I have the time, so why not? So you move down here, you have these selections to trim with. This is for drawing any shape around an object. These are just rectangular, square type of box deletions or cropping. And these are for islands. So if you have floaters out there, you can click on them. So if I did click on this one, I can left click on the mouse, draw around it, release, and it'll say delete or crop. So here I want to delete. If you happen to outline something in green and those options are gone, just right click on the green part again and it'll bring up the delete and crop options again. Okay, and then in here, I mean, this would be fine. Sometimes you can either do a tracing option where you're going to come in and do the same thing, or you're going to trace into here. Okay, and delete. So right click, delete. All right, or the quickest way is to set it up fairly flat and then take your box option and come through here. But you can see how close I am to that margin. Okay, so I can either deselect all and redraw it, or if I did that again, see now I'm touching the margin, and I actually went ahead and deleted that. I have my undo option over here. So always have undo and redo. So I undo that and I'm back to where I started. Now I know, oh, I better be a little bit more careful. I'll come in a little lower and delete.
That undo button is vital.
Yeah, yeah.
It's good to have.
So yeah, and you can spend more time trimming around here and stuff like that, getting exactly where you want it. That should be fine for our purposes. Okay. So then I'm going to go to the next button. I still only have scan and add a scan here. If I did see a hole, I could either double click on the hole and that will move the model to face the camera to take an extra picture, or I can just position it manually towards the camera lens like that and go here and hit add scan. Okay.
Perfect.
We'll go next. This will be the alignment stage. Okay, so I'm going to be on number 30. I want to outline that quickly and assign it. And then this is the upper model. Now remember, they're opposites. Okay, so I'm going to go to the upper model.
You just select
and
the whole
assign.
model?
Yep, and then
Okay.
assign it. And if you have anything floating out there, when you go forward, sometimes it'll give you a warning. It's like this. That's why I did that, so you can see the warning. So some data has been assigned, but we know it's just like an articulator or maybe an additional scan, like a floater or something that didn't get cut off. If you want to continue, you just say yes. Okay, so now when that's working on that, I'm taking the plate off the scanner and switching models and switching dies. So now I'll be using the upper die with the lower model. Once again, I've got my buckle margin on the die facing the camera. I've got my model with the anteriors facing the camera. It's all secured down with the blue tack. And you'll see in the picture I'm using a little die cup, which is a little cup you fill with blue tack to put your dies in to hold them steady.
Now, Jeff, what would happen if you mentioned the buckle should be facing the camera? Would it still scan if it wasn't? Does it create issues, or is it just giving you more information so it's helpful to do it that way?
I think you mean the lingual. You want the buckle to the camera. So yep. Yeah, the lingual, it will still pick it up. It'll be fine. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
It's just a preference for alignment and so forth. All right, so I'm staying within the same icon. I haven't hit next. I haven't moved forward yet. Okay, I haven't gone through the path yet. All right, so I'm going to hit scan. So I'm touching that margin because I moved these up and down like that. That's why it's touching, but normally I wouldn't have moved those. It would be right in this standard position here. I don't really have to look through these because I know my model's mounted flat. Okay. Now, if you look at the top, you'll see the green check marks. Those are the steps that have been completed. So we've scanned the upper model, green check, and the lower die, green check. Now we're doing the lower model with die number 14. You can also change your numbering systems for your European users or your international users in the settings and change it to the world. The scanning is very smooth, it's quiet, it's really efficient.
You brought up a really good point. Lab technicians are always in a hurry, and I think you can speak to that probably better than anyone I know, being a lab technician for so long. So, that's good input, that it's quick, it's easy, it's effective, it's designed to be fast for lab technicians. Right.
Like I said, I can still, draw in here, cut this out more or whatever, but you don't have to take any time that you don't want to take. So I'm going to go ahead and move to next. All right, so now I'm doing die number 14, which is the upper. Assign that. And if you forget to sign something, let's say I hit confirm right here, it will pop up a message and say, all data has not been assigned. Are you sure you want to move forward? Okay. So, actually, I see, I was rushing. I see a mistake I made here. I didn't put the die back in the, the lower model. My apologies. So that would not work.
Hey, this is being a lab technician at its best,
Yeah. So I have to confirm that. So it won't have anything to match up to is the problem. Let me cancel that and rescan that.
Well, this is good. It's good to know you can go back and you can rescan the process, no matter how far you get along. So yeah, I think this is a good part of the learning process.
It is a good point. Sometimes when you're not reading from a script, you get ahead of yourself. And you have a lot of moving parts. Sometimes, you know, even in practicing, you just end up leaving them on the table. But like you say, it's a good thing because I know someone else is going to do it as well. And they're going to call up and say, what do I do?
Yeah, I made it this far. How do I fix this? So
Right.
it's good to see you can go back, you can rescan, you know, to get the information so you can align it and so forth. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So while that's scanning, I have another question regarding the light settings. It says if it's a reflective surface, is it better to go brighter or darker? And you know, for me, I would say it's probably you would address it per your site, like how the details look at that point in time.
Right. Well, your goal is to take away reflection. So if something's bright or shiny, you want to make it darker. Okay.
Got it. So darker might be better.
There
All
we
right.
go.
Yeah,
All
that
right.
was
So
quick.
14 again. Assign. Lower
Perfect.
model. So these other things that are in there, that's the articulator and so forth, that's what could, you know, ask if you want to continue sometimes.
Got it.
Assign. All data is assigned. You got the 2 green check marks. Okay. Okay, so now we've got green check marks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All done. It's asked me to do articulation. So I'm going to remove the plate. One thing I forgot to mention, very important, is remove the plate from the swing arm when you're changing models, because we do not want you pressing down onto the plate that's on the swing arm. So you have the putty or the clay is already on the plate and you want to squish a new model on there. You don't want to be doing that with it in place. You want to pull it off and do it in your hand, and you'll save yourself probably a repair bill if you did that over time many times.
Good to know.
Okay. So now I'm just going to do the articulation. Snap that together, put a little bit of blue tack putty or a rubber band, you know, between to hold together. And if you happen to do it upside down or something, we do have an icon for swapping the models in the position.
Perfect.
All right, so I've got that ready. That's going to go in here. All right. And we'll go ahead and scan. So it's a little reflective, I think. I better knock it down a little bit.
Okay, so this is a good example of what we were just talking about. If it is very reflective, maybe darken it a bit so that the detail is there. Got it. Okay, so that makes sense.
If I asked you to see the gingival CEJ there on that central, you can't see it.
Right.
I can just barely see the margin. So if I darken it up a little bit, it comes into view better. Now I can see the CEJ.
Absolutely.
Right there. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So this is a very quick scan because it's not really trying to register a lot of detail. It's just picking up a relationship. You can see my blue tack here on the side, just holding it together. If you have a rubber band on there, you can also see it, but it's usually not in a critical position. So I'm going to go ahead and trim that now. I'm going to use the box and just reverse what I usually did before. Instead of deleting this, I'm going to crop it. And that saves me from, you know, circling the upper and deleting it, circling the lower model base and deleting it. This does it more quickly. So that's taken care of. I still have just my 2 icons here, additional scan and scan. So I'm going to go to next. Now I won't be doing anything here. That's not me. That's the Medit artificial intelligence actually aligning the 2 scans from the separate die to the model die. And you want to see that marbled look or camouflage look. okay? You can see the tooth numbering there, number 14 here. Basically, this just turns it on and off, this icon. But if you're not quite 100% sure if that looks the way you want it, as far as alignment, you can use this icon here, detach data. Okay, so it separates it, and you can use the one-point matching system. So if I go right into the central fossa, right in that groove, in the pit, same place, it lines up and you're happy with it, okay? If you separate it and pull it out here like this, you wanted to do it again, and you put a point maybe on the lingual and put it on the buccal, did it wrong, you can delete the points here. So you remove alignment points, okay? So I'll put it here again. All right, and then we're gonna go next. This AI lines it up again nicely. Okay, so it looks good. Got the number 30 there. If you need to turn it off, use this here. All right, and then we're gonna do it with the same thing with the models. This didn't come out very well. They should be all blue there because I probably didn't trim it right. Of course, all the cases I did before this lined up just perfectly. But
oh, it's always the way it goes with live webinars.
yeah.
And, you know, that's another good point. We do like to do live webinars because we want to hear from you guys. We want your communication interaction. So it's kind of fun, you know, to see,
I'm going to
you
pull
know,
that
if there's
apart.
an issue. Yeah, you can make it work still. So
Yeah. So you do have the option to pull it apart. You can do, you know, point matching. If I could see this, something must have gotten in the way when I trimmed it wrong. But normally this will look just like that, and they'll just float into each other. Don't know why that came out like that, to tell you the truth. I did something wrong.
So typically they would mesh together basically.
Yep, they look exactly the same. And then you can do point matching. You know, you can put the points on there and the point on here, if I could see it.
Okay, so it's
it would
basically
line up.
the same that happened with the die. It just you can actually separate them and then you can manually align them with the points.
Yeah, it just manually aligns and then you're done. And like I said, if you go to the next step, or probably won't let me go to the next step actually. Let me see if I can go back. Yeah, so that trimmed out nicely. I'm not sure what I did there.
Well, that's dental lab technology, I guess. Yeah. So that pretty much wraps up the scanning process. You just kind of bumped into a bit of a meshing issue right here at the very end.
Yeah, well, from here it moves you into the two models occluded together. And the only other thing I would have shown you is that the models can be opened up. Like say you're doing a clear aligner and you want to open it up 1.5 millimeters. There's a sliding scale down here in the icons, and you set it at 1.5 and hit apply, and it'll open it up. And that way you have room to design, say like a clear aligner between the two cases. And you could set it at any increment, or you can do it like with a slider bar. So,
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, like I said, all my cases I did today, nothing happened like that. So I'll have to look into that.
Okay. Well, that's great. I mean, like it really took me through the scanning process, basically what needs to be done, how to eliminate unwanted data and so forth. So I think that was good. And also just the calibration process. Now, while you're here, can you show us where to reset your calibration default, basically? So go to by going to settings, and you can change the amount of time. Yeah.
Yeah, if I click on those 3 lines, you can come in here and go to the calibration period and just select, you know, any of these.
Got it. Okay. So 30 days is default, correct?
It's default right now, yep.
Okay.
So if I click on that, it's going to go to 7.
And that just will remind you every 7 days, it'll go red and it'll remind you to calibrate. Okay.
And then how often how often you set it to go to sleep also has options. You know, what type of speed you want to use, high speed, quality, speed. Just saying, like these settings I said are set to a default by Medit in Korea that they thought would be optimal. Okay, so
Very good.
I leave mine at 30 days anyway. But all right, and then
Okay.
if you hit about, this is the user guide that'll help you. All your steps, everything we covered as far as there's the plate, what it looks like when it passes. That's the intro oral calibration. What everything does with the mouse moves, pictures we looked at today, everything you need to know from start to finish in here.
So basically, if you have any questions about why or what to do,
Mhm.
you can go ahead in here and check the user guide, and it'll explain
Yeah.
the process for you. Okay.
This is what I was looking for. I wanted to show you, remember we had that pink icon in the initial setup window where it shows texture on and off. So basically one with color and one without.
Got it.
Different types of articulators, things like that.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good to look over. You know, if there's any questions that they maybe haven't come across yet, they'll have the
Yeah.
answers there regardless. So that's
And
great.
then yeah, about is where your serial number is. So it tells you also what version of the scan software you're in, if you need that
Perfect.
information.
Okay.
So that should cover it.
Well, thank you.
Sorry for the alignment at the end. I'm not really sure what happened
Oh,
there.
no problem. I think that I'm just going through the whole process. I'll go ahead and we can flip our cameras on really quick while we wrap it up here. I think that going through the process of seeing you, you know, step by step, understanding you can go back if you need to is really informative. Also, the lighting thing. There were several questions regarding the adjustment of the lighting and understanding how to get the information you need on your model. So that was very helpful. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm just going to pull it up right here. We have another T-Series scan coming up here, and your next webinar is going to be January 19th, and it's scanning triple tray. If you wanted to speak towards that at all, or they can just kind of tune in, watch for the registration link via the Facebook page, I think is where we'll be posting it. And obviously you can always reach out to anyone in, you know, whether it's me, emily.bradley@medit.com, Medit team, they'll know the you know, be able to get you the registration links and so forth. So yeah, that being said, Jeff, I will go ahead and wrap this up. You can flip your camera on for just a second and we'll say our goodbyes, and then we'll go ahead and let everybody get back to their nights.
Even though it did align these just with the tips of the teeth, which I'm not sure what I did, I apologize. But I wanted to correct it, see if I can get to the next stage just to show you the, okay,
Sure.
So here we are. This is what I wanted to show you.
Got
Try
it.
to recover there. So if you come down here and you click on this adjust occlusal height, you can use this slider, or you can just, you know, set it to 2.5, 1.5, what do you want to do? And then you can open it up. So normally if the bites were clear, which they're not, but you can see the space in here.
Right.
And
yeah.
then this just closes it back down. And then also on the left here, you have sliders where you can turn parts and components of the scans off, so you can individualize, you know, your view. And then you would go to next, and you'd be done. And there you are.
Very nice. Thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure. So yeah, the next one with impressions. A lot of labs use triple trays where you have the upper and lower bite in the same impression. Usually they're quadrants. So we'll show you how that works, where it flips it over and reads both sides. And then if you happen to notice the intraoral icon at the bottom in the software, for those deep anterior regions where you get holes often in impression scanning, we can use the intraoral scan icon to take an iOS and scan down there, a Medit iOS, and then add that scan into the T-Series scan data. So it fills in the holes. So it's pretty cool. But we won't go there. We'll save that for our next webinar another day.
That sounds like an exciting one. And And thank you. Thanks for preparing this. Very informative. Thanks for preparing the next several T-Series webinars that are on the calendar coming up. We look forward to tuning in, and want to just thank everyone who joined in. All of our end users, again, please reach out to us if there's something you would like to learn more about. If there's something you have a question about, we are happy to schedule and kind of plan a webinar around your needs. And again, just a quick reminder that this webinar has been recorded, and this will be made available for those of you who registered within 48 hours. So that being said, we'll let everybody go, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, you're welcome. Have a good
We'll see
evening,
you later.
everyone.
Okay,
Merry
bye-bye.
Christmas. Bye-bye.